What's going on, guys? Spidey here from PotatoLifeGaming, and today I'm bringing you guys a skill build video. I've been getting a lot of people asking about skill builds, so I'm just going to go over, I believe, about 4 different skill builds, and they're basically what I would use based on which imprint set is being used at the time. So I'm going to start off by showing you guys the imprint setup, and then from there we'll move on to the actual skill build based on the imprint. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start off with the top row imprint, which is Flying Blade, which is also the ranged imprint set. I'm going to start off by saying that I always unlock the lunge skill. It's not really meant for damage, but the mobility it offers is really useful, and I actually end up using this all the time. Not only does it give really good mobility with like a really low cooldown, but another really great thing about it is that it gives you ultra state during its use, meaning that if you have to run away from something or if you need to dive into an enemy that's attacking you, you won't be staggered and get stuck. And I also find it groups mobs pretty well if they're close to each other. Okay, so back to the rest of the skill build. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, I have lunge unlocked, just one level into that. Don't want to waste too many skill points there. Obviously, I have Doom Razor maxed for the crit rate and attack speed buffs. Obviously, Curse Drinker. And then aside from that, I have the range skills maxed. So Phantom Cross, Dancing Shadows, and Purgatory Wave. As well as Ultra Breaks. So Deadly Draw and Spectral. And that's mainly for if an enemy gets close to you, you can just Ultra Break them. Cutting Wave, obviously you're going to want maxed. And then I also maxed damage over time skills, so Oblivion, Soul Vortex, and Spirit Barrage. For the ranged imprint, I avoid using Soul Steal and Ghost Blast, just because they're not Ultra Breaks and they're kind of heavy hitters that would, I guess, take away from using the ranged imprint set. So I kind of really just focus on using all of the ranged skills when I use this imprint and skill build. Aside from that, I unlock Six Blade for iframes, I unlock Shadow Stride for iframes, and obviously unlock the ult just to have it. Dark Slash, not something that's going to be used very much when you're playing ranged or using a ranged imprint in general, so I unlocked it just to have it, but it's at level 1, and that's really, I don't think I've ever used that while using a ranged imprint. Okay, so moving on to the awakenings. Obviously the first thing I did was max Cutting Wave, just because the attack speed and movement speed increases that it gives. Aside from that, I maxed all of the range skills. So Dancing Shadows gets an attack power increase, and Purgatory Wave and Phantom Cross actually also gain increase in the speed of the skill. So you can actually see the difference from 0 awakening points to 5, how much of a difference it actually is to max these awakenings. Aside from that, I maxed Oblivion and put the remaining points into Spirit Barrage. And I mainly did that because it's also a damage over time skill. So the damage over time skills like Vortex, Oblivion, and Spirit Barrage, something you could do with that is, say for example, floor 55 in Arena, I believe is Egg, the giant robot guy, and he's constantly chasing you down. Same with floor 49 when you fight Nikita. Situations like that make it really easy to just throw down Vortex, Oblivion, and Spirit Barrage, and then just dash backwards with, you know, the handy lunge skill that you have unlocked, and then you just blast them with ranged attacks while they're running into all of your damage over time skills. So I think if there was anything to change on this, it would most likely be Spirit Barrage, which is pretty much 2 free points. I would most likely put that in a Deadly Draw. I think anything that I were to change on this, I would definitely put points in the Deadly Draw first. And the only ones I would change from this realistically are, I guess, Oblivion, if you don't use it much and didn't want to use it much, and Spirit Barrage for sure could be changed. I'd probably put points into Deadly Draw and then points in the Spectral. Other than that, I really think that's it when it comes to the range build. It's mainly just using a ton of range skills and just spamming them. Okay, so moving on from the top row imprints, we'll go ahead and go into the middle row, which is Cutting Blade, also known as the Infinite Cutting Imprint. And we'll go ahead and switch over to that skill build. Okay, so for this skill build, since it's so similar to the skill build that I used before imprints were released, I'm going to explain, I guess, a no imprint build before I jump into the Infinite Cutting build. So the only differences for that, Spirit Barrage would be only unlocked and not maxed, and Dark Slash would be maxed. And the reason for that is without Infinite Cut, you end up running out of cutting waves, so you have to use Dark Slash as pretty much as your best filler. Other than that, I have Phantom Cross unlocked and Purgatory Wave unlocked just to gain curse stacks, because the skills that give you curse stacks just from using them are actually Phantom Cross, Oblivion, Purgatory Wave, Vortex, and Ghost Blast. So you can see with each use of each skill, you gain 1 curse stack, and that's pretty much what I would do before imprints were unlocked, rather than just spamming Cutting Wave. So once I got the Infinite Cut imprint, I no longer needed Dark Slash, because instead of using that, my strongest filler is going to be spamming Cutting Wave. So that is no longer max rank, and I actually put those points into Spirit Barrage, because now with the 2 out of 3 bonus, you actually gain a 5% attack power buff from using Spirit Barrage. So since it's actually useful now, and it's a damage over time skill that, from what I remember, is actually stronger than Soul Vortex. Okay, so for this skill build's awakenings, obviously it's the Infinite Cutting Wave imprint, so the Cutting Wave awakening is maxed. Ghost Blast is also maxed, no need to explain that really. Next I have Deadly Draw and Soul Steal maxed, and when both of these are maxed in skill points and in awakening, they actually do pretty similar damage and both have a 20-second cooldown. And I also want to just mention that when I first started playing this game, I actually used to really hate Soul Steal, but now it's actually one of my favorite attacks, and it's probably one of the most satisfying to land in my opinion. And I'm actually mentioning this because I've seen a lot of Doomblades recently that, for whatever reason, they don't rank Soul Steal, or don't hold it to proc its serious blow. And Soul Steal is seriously so strong, guys, so I definitely recommend maxing that, and with its low cooldown, just using it as much as possible. Aside from that, I have Spectral max, because it's such a fast Ultra Break, and it's just so powerful when you hold it down, that even though it has a pretty long cooldown, it's more worth to max Spectral over the other skills that can be awakened. And to finish off my awakening points, I have Oblivion maxed, and with the remaining points, I put them into 6-Blade Leap. And I did this mainly because Oblivion only has a 15-second cooldown, so I feel like it's spammed a lot more often than 6-Blade Leap, which at this point, with Infinite Cutting, I think it's pretty much not really even used for damage anymore, but rather mainly used for situations where you need iframes or an Ultra Break. But either way, I put the rest of my points into 6-Blade after maxing Oblivion because it was more worth than putting points into any of the other skills. And that's pretty much all there is to this skill build, so we will go ahead and move on to the next imprint and the next skill build. Okay, so moving on from the Cutting Blade imprint, I went ahead and actually reset one of my skill tabs just for you guys to show you guys what I would do for the Cursed Blade imprint set, which, to be honest, if you use this imprint set, you're probably the only Doomblade in the universe that uses it, but I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the small change that I would make from the previous build. Okay, so I've reset this skill build, and I've set it up to be exactly like the one you guys just saw for Infinite Cutting. So for this skill build, using the third imprint set, Cursed Blade, if you guys remember correctly, the imprint set makes it so that Dancing Shadows actually restores curse stacks. I mean, you can get up to 5 using Dancing Shadows. So I literally just reset just to show you guys that if you actually just D-rank Spirit Barrage, which is unimportant to that skill set, as well as make Dark Slash rank 1, you can actually fully max Dancing Shadows, which is what I would recommend doing for that skill build. That's really the only change that I would do if I were to run Cursed Blade imprint set as, I guess, the main set that I'd be using for this skill set. Since not many people really run Cursed Blade imprint to begin with though, it's not very popular, I'm not really going to touch up on that any more than I did, but pretty much all I would do is max Dancing Shadows instead of Dark Slash and Spirit Barrage, just because it's used a lot more often because of the 1 out of 3 set bonus. Other than that, I wanted to try to make a skill build for an idea that I had at the end of the last imprinting video that I made, and that was to have 2 of the Flying Blade imprints and 1 of the Cursed Blade imprints. Meaning that you get the 2 out of 3 set bonus, giving you the pretty overpowered Dancing Shadows from Flying Blade, as well as the regenning curse stacks from Cursed Blade. Okay, so this is the build I kind of ended up creating for the hybrid 2 out of 3 Flying Blade and 1 out of 3 Cursed Blade. So as usual, we have Lunge unlocked, and then we also have Dancing Shadows unlocked, because it has the 2 out of 3 set bonus, and it also gives you your stacks back when you use it. So I also went ahead, obviously, Cutting Wave is a huge part of this build, since I kind of made the build to be prioritized around building stacks and using Cutting Wave as much as possible. So all of the skills that generate curse marks are maxed. So you have Vortex, Purgatory Wave, Oblivion, Ghost Blast, and Phantom Cross. I also went ahead and maxed Deadly Draw and Spectral, because those are your, I guess, your important Ultra Breaks, and they're pretty strong for bossing as well. I only unlocked 6-Blade just for iframes. I went ahead and maxed Shadow Stride just for movement, iframes, that kind of thing. I unlocked Ultimate because this is kind of useful to have in any situation, you know, just for panic iframes if you ever need it. Ghost Blast is pretty much what I designated as the skill that you would use against a boss or a sub-boss that you need to kill quickly, because it's really, aside from Deadly Draw and Spectral, Soul Steal is only rank 1, so I really thought it didn't have a place in this build, so I left it at rank 1. So Ghost Blast is really the skill you're going to be using for bossing as well as Deadly Draw. So for the Awakenings, obviously I have Dancing Shadows max just because it is imprinted. Cutting Wave is obviously maxed because the buffs are really nice. Deadly Draw is actually fully maxed because this is going to be the most important Ultra Break you have. It's quick, low cooldown, and it's very powerful. I also maxed Phantom Cross because not only does it gain curse stacks, but it's also imprinted. So it's actually really useful, especially since this build is kind of like a hybrid for farming and bossing. I think it would be pretty nice to have that to clear rooms quickly. And the last thing I did, aside from maxing Ghost Blast, which is obvious, was maxing Oblivion's Awakening, and then putting the rest of the points into Spectral. So I prioritized Oblivion over Spectral just because it has a lower cooldown, and it gives you curse stacks, so I figured that would have the importance in this build. And after trying this build actually in Training Ground, I haven't actually tried it in a dungeon yet, but it feels really nice in Training Ground, and I'll go ahead and play a clip that shows its combo ability. You can actually pretty much keep comboing endlessly because you can just keep regenning curse stacks. So as long as you keep using all the different skills that regen curse stacks, and using cutting waves in between, it's pretty much like an endless combo. And it feels a lot like Cat's Paw in that sense, which it's kind of hard to explain, but that's kind of the vibe I was getting from it. But I'll go ahead and let the clip play so you guys can see more or less what it looks like in action. And there you go, I pretty much used up all my mana in one combo, so it's actually really fun to play, and I'll definitely recommend trying it if, you know, if you're someone who's not lucky enough to get the full cutting wave imprint for the infinite cutting, or if you just prefer having a hybrid of ranged and cutting waves, I guess, I don't know. But I did want to try that because I mentioned it in the last imprinting video, so I really wanted to see how I can make a build like that work. So I think that's the last skill build that I'm going to cover. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you decide to try any of these. And there is one more thing actually that I do want to talk about, and it's mainly because I've been getting a lot of people asking me about my hotkeys, because they always say that my hotkeys make no sense because it goes X, Y, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go F1 through 4, and that's because I play on a controller. I actually play on an Xbox One Elite Scuff controller, and I use a program called Rewast to remap all the buttons and paddles and joysticks and triggers, and I'll go ahead and show you guys how that works. So here's Rewast, and basically what it lets you do is custom map every single button and joystick control on your controller to a keyboard or mouse button. So you see on the left joystick I have WASD, and on the right joystick I have mouse up, down, left, right, etc. And on the paddles I have F1 through 4 because it's a scuff controller, so I do have paddles on the back for more buttons. Other than that, that's pretty much how I play. So you can alternate profiles if you play different games, or if you just prefer using a controller in general, I would definitely recommend trying this out. It's definitely the best program that I've used so far. It even lets you adjust, for example, controller dead zone and its response time. So for all you guys that like using controllers out there, I would definitely recommend this. It's the best program that I've found so far that allows you to remap the controller to play on the computer. So there you have it. Those are all the skill builds that I could think to show you guys. I guess let me know again in the comments if you decide to try any of them, and hope you enjoyed watching. See you in the next one. Goodbye.